I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the filthy capitalist option. As Sori says, 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. 125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and you get matched down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at villageXchange@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in a Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go on the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Bar merch. Hello.
Hello, dear listener.
So, we are about to do Sabaton Hearts of Iron.
Again? There was a situation, things of that nature.
Forgive us.
It was a long story. Well, there's nothing to forgive.
This is for Brian, so shout out to Brian.
Yes.
Ready?
Yes. There it is. There it is, dear listener. And go!
In vain, try to save Berlin. In vain, it's a road to death and pain. On the other shore, there's the end of the war. Who could ever have believed? Seems like nothing's been achieved. Just to walk a day, go all the way. The thrones are closing in as the end is drawing near. The 12th army interfere. Open up or out, get people out. It's forces spread out then. It's the end of the war. Reach for endless shore. It's the end, the war's been lost. Keeping them safe till the river's been crossed. Nicht ein Schlag, ein Rettungsaktion. Holding the ground till the final platoon. Hurry up, we're waiting for you. Men of the 9th and civilians too. Dispossessed, surrendering to the West. Who'll survive and who will die? Up to Kriegsklick to decide. Those who made it cross without a loss have reason to reflect. It is not about Berlin. It is not about the Reich. It's about the men who fought for them. What peace can they expect? It's the end of the war. Reach for endless shore. It's the end, the war's been lost. Keeping them safe till the river's been crossed. Nicht ein Schlag, ein Rettungsaktion. Holding the ground till the final platoon. Hurry up, we're waiting for you. Men of the 9th and civilians too. Dispossessed, surrendering to the West. See the city burn on the other side. Going down in flames as two worlds collide. Who can now look back with a sense of pride? On the other shore, there's the end of the war. See the city burn on the other side. Going down in flames as two worlds collide. Who can now look back with a sense of pride? On the other shore, there's the end of the war.
All right. Well, so this is about. We usually don't look at the, the lyrical content or whatnot, but this one was a little bit. I think he said in the thingamajiggy that there was some history behind what happened. During the final Battle of Berlin
he said twice to read up on it before
in
listening.
1945, the general of the 12th Army, Walter Wenck, realized that the end of the war was coming, and instead of trying to defeat the advancing Soviet forces as his orders were, he used his army to create an escape corridor out of Berlin. For such an act, he would surely have been sentenced to death, but instead he ended up being responsible for up to 250,000 people safely escaping the burning city of Berlin. For some, this was a battle. For him, it was a rescue operation. So the whole song is really about the Battle of Halby, I think, and it's about this guy who, I mean,
Babe, is the audio going? Just want to make sure.
It's a trauma.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. I was watching this movie one time. I didn't understand why at the time. Now I do. My stepdad, shout out to the homie. He's coming up real soon. I cannot wait for that to happen.
Oh, me too.
But he was talking. He would always watch these war movies, and I always thought that they were boring as a kid. Obviously, now I have a different perspective on it. But I'll never forget one of the more, impactful kind of quotes from movies that you hear, especially war movies. And the guy was training to be I think it was about Patton. I think the name of it was, General Patton, whatever. It was the name of the movie. And, the guy was in like officer class or whatever. He was going to be an officer, Mm-hmm. And, they were putting him through the ringer or whatever. And then the officer had to go see Patton or something like that. And
Babe, I don't even know who Patton is.
Famous general, World War II, that type of thing.
Okay.
Really, really important guy. But this young officer obviously looks up to Patton, the legend, whatever. And the guy, Patton starts interrogating, why do you want to do this? Blah, 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 blah. What are you willing to sacrifice? And the guy goes, I am willing to die for my men. And, Patton says, well, that's very commendable. But your job is not to die for your men. Your job is to choose which one of your men is going to die.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
And that, for obvious reasons, anytime there's some sort of reversal like that, I love that type of stuff. But it was massively impactful, the decisions that these guys have to make. And, you pull out of the narrative, the historical narrative that, anybody that was in Germany in the 40s is just some different kind of Homo sapien and just a horribly evil, terrible, intractably disgusting, rotten person with no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Like this so now if you call somebody a Nazi, you're saying that they're like the worst person on the planet.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Ben Webb can be in the chat yesterday and say you should be a communist, and nobody says anything because the people that propagandize us haven't demonized the communists the way they've demonized the German people in the 40s. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, I'm not going to angelize evil people either, but the fact of the matter is, Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time. The fact of the matter is, a vast majority of you, if you were in Germany, everybody wants to pretend that they would be that one guy that's doing, this thing.
Yep.
For all intents and purposes, if you were in Germany in the 40s, you probably would have went along with it. These were regular human beings who had just had their country completely and totally decimated. Absolutely horrific.
I'll tell you.
Human rights crises happened, absolutely, but horrific human rights crises happened in the Middle Passage with slavery, and the communists quadrupled the innocent dead, and they've killed way more people than the Nazis ever did. but there's this stigma on all German people as if they're irredeemably horrible. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, it's interesting because right now we're doing a lot of work with qualified immunity.
Right.
And with qualified immunity, you're basically speaking to the cops are allowed to violate our Constitution and our civil rights. Yeah. And then when they do that, you can't personally sue them if they violate your rights because of qualified immunity.
Right.
And so we're working to kind of get that taken away so that way people can be held responsible for their actions. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about it, the last couple of weeks and a lot today. Yeah. And I'm like, there's like a part of me that's a little bit scared to be part of this because I'm like, whenever I got pulled over by the cops for whatever reason, like I never have had any trouble. Like they've always been very nice. The only time that I ever got any trouble, which wouldn't even consider it trouble, was when I was in the car with you and they were like giving you the hairy eye and then they looked at me and asked me if I felt safe or something like that. Yeah,
they asked you if you felt okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if you were safe. Because what is this Negro doing with this very beautiful Caucasian
How did this
lady?
happen? Yeah. So it was that's a pretty weird experience. And, just thinking like once you actively go against something, because obviously the cops want qualified immunity to stay and they are going hard against anybody that is opposing that. So it's like, now I'm like, okay, if I get pulled over by the cops, once I put my voice out there on this, like they're probably not going to give me any slack whatsoever. And they might even go more overboard. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like last night I had this dream that I was like in cuffs and I was being put in jail, which you know how I feel about something like that. I'm very claustrophobic. And so I was just thinking like, really, like if the cops do something like that, like they can't, I haven't broken any laws or any crimes. I haven't done any crimes, so they can't keep me. They'd have to let me back out. But what? Marrying a black man? But anyway, if you haven't broken any laws, then they can't really keep you. So it's kind of like, but then I was thinking, you know what? I don't know if my life was on the line or the life of my family. I don't think that I would speak out. I always thought if I was back in the time of slavery or if I was when the Jews were getting dragged away, I always thought I would absolutely stand up against that stuff. And whatever happened to me, but I think I'm different now.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you. I mean, you know, anybody that takes on abortion and the abortion lobby would have done the right thing during the 40s in Germany. So you've done it. When you've had your kids out there, you've had them assaulted, you've been assaulted, your life has been threatened. You know, cops came after you just like they did everybody else. They weren't giving you any breaks. So, yeah, I always say, like, what you do with abortion is what you would have done during the Holocaust. Yeah. So, and you know, it offends people. Hopefully. And I promise you, I'm not here to offend anybody, but every generation, the state comes and says, these people are open for killing, we can kill them with no recourse. Every generation has it. And it's always a majority that goes along with it because it's legal, and it's always a minority that says, no, we can't do this. And then you always hear, well, it's impossible, you're never going to end abortion. Just like slavery. Mm-hmm. You know, slavery, they were telling, I mean, you got letters going back and forth where people were like, yeah, man, this is terrible. I was reading stuff from Thomas Jefferson where they were like, yeah, this is terrible. Jefferson said, look, man, these people are going to be free. Period. But the vast majority, you know, there's obviously an economic stake in it. So the vast majority of the people in that area were pro-slavery. Mm-hmm. And every argument that you hear that justifies abortion, even pro-choice, don't want an abortion, don't have one. Well, you had leaflets saying, don't want a slave, don't buy one. Mm-hmm. So this isn't about the race issue or even the abortion issue. It's just human nature. Mm-hmm. And that's why, you know, we've seen the real ugly back office ramifications of abortion and things like that most people purposely look away from, just like they purposely looked away from what's happening in those camps.
Right.
And it's horrifying, and it's completely and totally unjust. And but human nature is such that whatever the majority is doing, most people are going to go with that. Yeah. So So we've come face to face with the horrors of what abortion does, and we've also come face to face with people that say the most horrifically evil stuff in that regard. Oh, we're gonna put the baby in a blender, blah blah blah. People saying stuff about kids at 8-9 months pregnant and still being able to kill them. We're talking about people murdering people outside of the womb, but then if you talk about something like the penguins in Alaska, they'll cry. So it's this dichotomy that we're simultaneously angels and demons. And I see it in our culture. I'm friends with that's why people, that's one of the reasons I'm very, I don't know what the term is, even-handed or whatever with the German people, because I don't see any difference. So everybody wants to make the German people in the 40s like some different kind of human being. Sorry, they're regular human beings that have been doing what human beings have done since the beginning. We're always going to find a group. We're going to go after that group. We're going to discriminate against them. The majority is going to... Here's what happens. There's only a minority of people that want to actually commit the action. So, like, in a given city, there's probably 5 or 6 abortion doctors that are actually doing the killing. And then you've got in the next concentric circle, you've got a group of people who know it's happening and will do nothing about it. And that's
the nurses that help.
That's
the
large, the nurses that help. That's the, and then there's a regular populace who's knows it's happening and won't say and do anything about it because they don't want to ruffle any feathers. And then there's a minority of people that are saying this is evil, we have to stop it. And everybody wants, and every previous generation, generation that follows after loves to judge the previous generation as if they're horrible, as if that it's going to be the elderly. Once we beat abortion, we'll find another group of people to kill. So and if you didn't notice by now, I don't care about anybody's opinion, because this is bigger than your little YouTube channel or whether or not people like you. So
I just think, when we're dealing with these topics, I was looking at different local businesses and I'm like, oh, we should go into the local businesses and like say, hey, this is what qualified immunity is. Talk to them about it and see if they would be willing to put up a sign in their window,
right?
Supporting it, in support of it. And if we get a lot of businesses, then that's a lot more places that people can see that. But then I was thinking, you know what? A lot of the businesses are not going to want to basically put a red flag to all the cops.
They don't want to type that.
Right, because we've seen what's been happening where the cops will be like, the blue flu and stuff like that, and they won't show up when people are in need or there's different things. So it's like...
Well, there's also that theory that you commit 5 felonies a day, and most of the time everybody just looks the other way.
Right. Yeah.
And there's some weird statute that, you can't have your left light dimmer by 5 degrees and you're whatever.
Now you're in trouble.
Yeah, so my that it was a long way of saying, like, these are human beings, and what this guy did, he basically saw the Reich was in flames, which must have been a surreal moment because Hitler had done a very good job of brainwashing these people into the idea that they were invincible. And I understand why, because technologically speaking, forget it. As far as esprit de corps is basically what is the morale of the troops? What is their fighting spirit? That's something that, like, recon, like, you have to measure that. That's actually a measurement. In the modern world, as far as the esprit de corps, they're the standard of what that is. I mean, you had kids. I told you this story. You had kids, these Hitler Youth kids. So the older heads who had been in World War I, basically, who were experienced war fighters, knew it's over. We lost. You know what it looks like when you lose.
Yeah.
So they were trying to do what this guy was doing and, like, retreating. And the kids, I saw some of the history, it was mind-boggling. The kids, the Hitler Youth kids, would kill their retreating commanders. Because they're like, the Fuhrer said, at all costs to the last man, and you're turning your back, so boom, boom, boom. Like, so I understand why they thought, well, shit, like, we're invincible, we can't lose. But it's a very hard thing to accept when you're pumped full of supremacy.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
you're a young male, and you're ready to fight, and you've seen people die. That's the other thing, is when a war changes and you start losing, what that means, in football, when you start losing, it's because the other team starts scoring more touchdowns than you. In war, when you start losing, it's because your friends are dying all over the place. And then what happens is your sole motivation becomes complete and total vengeance. It's so strange. There are some situations, I always say that survival is the most basic instinct, basic human instinct. But there have been moments in time when vengeance for your lost comrade is more important to you than your own survival.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
So if you got to understand like how much leadership this dude had to exit. Yeah, he was a terrible guy, whatever you want to say, but he had redeeming qualities. I don't care. He did, because he understood the situation. Berlin is down, like the capital of Germany, and they were losing. They lost. And he's like, his mindset changes from we need to defend Berlin to we need to get these people out. And he saved 250,000 people. Now, he's never going to get memorialized on a global level, and he probably can't get memorialized at a German side either, because
well, yeah,
I don't even think it's legal to like even. I gotta talk to Peter and see like what the actual laws are, but like you can't say anything pro-Nazi, or you can't have any pro-Nazi. They'll arrest you. So I don't know how German. Like, how do you teach history? Like, like, are you supposed to tell these people that their grandparents were like incorrigibly horrible? And again, I don't have a problem with saying that your fathers were incorrigibly horrible people, but it's in America, we're able to look at our founding fathers and overlook the fact that the vast majority of them were slave owners, which is a horrific evil. And trust me, if you had to choose between being in Auschwitz or being at the bottom of one of those boats, crossing the Middle Passage, I'll take Auschwitz 10 times out of 10. But my point is, we know that our founding fathers were horrible at certain things, and yet the American mind is able to go, yeah, but they did good stuff here. Now, as a black person in this country, I'm like, oh, that's pretty convenient. But at the same time, I see the value and the utility in it. And theologically, obviously, I believe we're creating the image and likeness of God, which means we're altruistic and we're creative and we make beautiful things in the world and we do things like this. But we're fallen image bearers of God, which means we have the capacity for evil, cowardice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is, but here, so it gives me a paradigm to say, if there's a really good guy like Gandhi, who's like elevated to these, heights, I know there's something about him that's horrible. And sure enough, there is. And you take a guy like MLK, and thank you, COINTELPRO, but there are things that he did that was like, whoa, holy shit, man.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Amelia.
Peterson was kind of talking about this, where you are not just one thing. And so some people want to look at themselves and they want to say, well, I'm no Hitler, and they want to only look at themselves for the good that they bring to the world. And they can't face the fact that they have done evil things or selfish things to other human beings.
Yeah.
And then there are other people that only want to look at their bad, and they're like, I'm just the shittiest person that ever walked the face of the earth. And they don't want to focus on the good that they are too. And so for us to have a healthy understanding of ourselves and a way that we can interact with ourselves and interact with the world around us, we have to be honest with ourselves about who we are and what it is that we're capable of, for good or for evil, and know where we've come from for good or for evil. And Jordan was saying that when you have that sort of respect for yourself, to recognize the world of chaos that you are capable of bringing, and then recognize the good that you're capable of bringing, and you bring those two together.
That's it.
Then you can go somewhere.
That's it.
Because you can say, okay, I know that I'm capable of all this chaos, but I'm gonna pull that in, and I'm also capable of all this good. That's why you can have Hitler, who's mowing people down like that, but then he's all kind and good to his cat.
Right. And if we do not relate to the average German, Nazi citizen if we don't try to find common ground there, then we are going to make, and I believe, especially in the abortion discussion, we're going to make the same error.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, this is a little Pollyannish. We're all part of the human family. What that means is, I talked this to Dorian. He had an issue, that he struggles with, and I said, well, little bro, you got my DNA, so you're gonna struggle with that the rest of your life. Sorry, but we all got the same DNA to a degree as human beings. So if I don't look at Hans, the regular German citizen, and see how did he get so brainwashed to where he followed an absolute psychopath. Guys like Melenge, the doctor, or whatever, the guy was obviously full of spirits. There are a couple guys in the Nazi, pantheon that were just particularly demonized, obviously. What I'm talking about is Hans, the regular German citizen, who all he knows is he loves Deutschland, and that they were treated unfairly, after World War I. And you can, look, everybody that looked at the Treaty of Versailles, especially in the modern age looking back, knows that it was completely punitive. There was nothing redemptive about it. It was just there to humiliate and decimate the entire country.
Okay.
So what happens is Hitler comes around. It's kind of like Bill Belichick. So the Patriots cheated. Okay, I think it was a bullshit thing, but whatever. The Patriots.
You mean the inflation thing? Or
yeah,
deflation?
No. There's another one.
Really?
Spygate. Yeah, it's a long story. But anyway, the Patriots cheated.
All right.
And and they were wrong. And the league went crazy, made this giant deal about it. They went overboard. Everybody in New England says that, objectively speaking. So Belichick gets everybody in the locker room and says, "We're slaying everybody. We're slicing everybody's throats this year." And they went off and they did stuff that broke the unspoken rules of football. So if you're up by 10 touchdowns, you're not supposed to keep scoring. You're supposed to pull all your best players out, sit them on the bench, bring your second, third stringers in, and then just let the game go out. They had a 7 touchdown lead on this one team. 7 touchdowns. That's 49 points.
Oh.
It was 49-3. Some horrible situation. Belichick kept Brady into the last fucking minute. Yeah, he said nothing. and my point is, they were wrong. You cheated, but you got angry. And it's because the response in their mind was overboard, so they went crazy about it. And the more they did it, the more they were like, yeah, we're the Patriots. And you heard everybody in New England, 2007, were like, yeah. It was like, how dare. So you have to understand that mindset in something as, sports, okay. But that principle where we have been attacked as a country when in reality we're superior and we're going to show you guys. You don't think that's in you? You're an American. You hear about we bombed this country, we bombed that country, and you keep going. But we really believe. But then the
Twin Tower thing happened. We were like, what?
End of the world. People gotta die for that shit, bro.
People were making songs. Seriously.
We'll put a boot up your ass. It's the American way. I still love that song. And I don't care.
Why?
I
but
I was a little.
I used to think it was out of nowhere. I was like, what? Why are people upset with us? And then everybody was always saying, they're just jealous of our freedoms. And I was like, jealous of our freedoms? That's terrible. And then you get a little bit more learned and you start realizing,
that's nothing to do with our unilateral support of an apartheid state over there. Nothing at all. No. So this guy did the right thing. It was a beautiful thing that he did. He sacrificed a lot, his pride, put his life on the line and everything to make sure he got 250,000 people out safe. And make no mistake, those Soviets would have mowed those people down. There were tons of human rights. The Dresden bombings, completely unnecessary human rights atrocity. So that's the other thing, what we did to a lot of those people were human rights atrocities. It was across the board. Was there an equivalency between Dresden and Auschwitz? Of course not. But my point is, it's just like what happened to me with ISIS, right? It was one of the last, I call it death porn videos where ISIS would do this, whatever. But anyway, they caught Kasaspa, this pilot, and they put him in a cage and set him on fire until he died. Mm-hmm. And it was just the most. I remember sitting and watching it, and all those guys that were there had weapons. Like I was just like yelling at the computer screen, like somebody put a bullet in this kid's head, because, I mean, it was.
Give him a mercy kill.
It was a terrible situation. And the way that ISIS does it is particularly evil, because they'll have you do that 9-10 times. They'll put you in a cage. They'll do the whole thing. And then they'll tell you, oh, we're just doing it. We're not going to do that to you. And then on the last one, they do it for real. So the guy's like, has no idea what's going on. And he's terrified. And he's like, yo, you guys made a mistake. It's just horrible. And I just remember like being in my room and like pacing. I called one of my guys. I'm like, yo, and he's like, and I just remember being like so angry. So then the next day, I think it was Drogan. I don't know how to pronounce his name. The president of Turkey used to be in their Air Force. He does this big photo op. He jumps in his plane or whatever, American funded F-15, whatever it was, and he's gonna go on a gun run, because he's not gonna let this happen, whatever. And then he bombed a couple ISIS strongholds. And I was like, yeah, good. And God was like, yeah, bro, no doubt. And he's like, so let me get this straight, Vin. This is God speaking to me. You're angry at ISIS for burning this guy alive. But that guy was part of their Air Force who bombed the hell out of those positions. And you know that most people, when they die in a bombing, generally don't die from the explosion, but a lot of them burn to death.
Thanks. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
these guys saw the people that they love burn to death. They caught one of the guys that did it, so they burned him to death. And so the response to that was to jump in an F-15 and drop a bunch of bombs and then burn them to death. But you're somehow better than these ISIS people. And I was just like... Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm out. Like, I've got no. Yeah. I see. There's no way I can't judge them, in the sense that I can't put myself above them, because I wanted for them what they wanted for him. Mm-hmm. The difference is I saw that shit happen on TV. Mm-hmm. They saw that shit happen in real time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're all out here traumatizing each other.
Yeah.
And that's why the Holocaust is just a very fascinating thing to me, because I'm trying to connect my humanity with their humanity to try to understand why they did what they did, or why they allowed what they allowed. Because I know there was a lot of good still in the hearts of those people. Mm-hmm. It's right there.
Right.
Or it's in the story of the German fighter pilot, who saw an American plane and it was completely shot up and the guy had no hope. And the German pilot taxied the guy to American airspace, gave him a little wave and drove. Right. So you can't tell me that these people are just monolithically evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm trying to connect with them in all of their humanity. Mm-hmm. The good parts and the bad parts. And in this particular episode, definitely a sad moment for them. And it must have been extremely tragic to see that to once again see your country basically go up in flames and you lost again,
Yeah.
And at that human level, I'm sure we can connect. Obviously, none of us co-signs what they did to those beautiful people, creating the image and likeness of God. But I mean, listen, go Google what the Israelis did today. This is Ramadan, and the Israelis went to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and basically desecrated the Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan.
What'd they do?
So I'm not gonna get into it, but my point is, like,
yeah,
the state of Israel was established because of the actions of the German people, and then now they've turned around and they're oppressing the Palestinian people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So there's no. Anyway, so shout out to the homie. He did the right thing in that situation. Sometimes surrendering is the right thing.
You see it too, like, even in, like, obviously less traumatic experiences, but, like, the way that kids relate to each other. Like, sometimes they'll just find one and they'll just, like, everybody shits on that one kid. It's like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And then like someone else smaller than that one comes in, and then you know what I'm saying? Like
100%.
It's very interesting to see
100%.
how nobody teaches them to do that, but they're doing it.
Yeah. It's and yeah, you have to teach kids not to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, the whole pecking order thing.
Yep.
What do you give it?
I'm gonna go with a 9.3.
I can co-sign that. 9.3. 9.3. There you are, dear listener. The moral of the story is know yourself.
Yeah.
Know yourself.
Face yourself.
Face
That's
face
better.
yourself. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.